Cada día sale el sol, nuevas esperanzas son. Dios habla a tu corazón, sanándote, alimentando tu vida con bálsamo de vida, con bálsamo de vida, bálsamo de vida.
Bálsamo de vida con Rosmery y Reid.
In the book of Matthew chapter 20, we find the parable of a landowner who went out to hire workers for his vineyard. The word says that he hired a group at the beginning of the day and had agreed to pay them a denarius. Going out around the third hour of the day, he saw others who were in the marketplace unoccupied. He told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. And he went out again around noon, and about 3 in the afternoon, and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" "Because no one has hired us," they answered. He said to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." May God bless and keep you today. Today we will be reflecting under the title, The Grace of God. This parable continues to tell us that at the end of the day's work at night, the owner of the vineyard called his foreman, and he said, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired going to the first." You can imagine the uproar that arose when the first to arrive saw that they were receiving the same pay as those who arrived in the afternoon and those who arrived almost at the end of the workday. They began to murmur against the landowner and perhaps feel wrong because they understood that they should receive more than the others. But the landowner replies to them in verse 13 saying, "I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous?" Analyzing this parable, the same thing happens to us. Almost none of us identify with those at noon, and much less with the last to arrive. We almost always say, "I have been here for many years. I've held all these positions. I'm always first to arrive. I'm in all the activities." And we think this way and forget that this is by grace. The same grace that gave the prodigal son new clothes, shoes, and rings. But what is grace, you might ask? Grace is what we receive from God without deserving it. The prodigal son memorized countless things to tell his father that he was repeating it as he returned home. But when his father saw him arrive, the word says that he ran to catch up with him. And he says that every day he was looking to see his son's return. And I invite you to read that story in its entirety. You will notice that everything that he had been repeating on his way, he did not get to say it because his father first approached him and kissed him. And he was so happy that he ordered his son to be put in new clothes, shoes, be given a ring, and have the fattest calf to be killed to be fed to him. I can only imagine that after being gone for so long, this son must have smelled horrible, was probably hairy, but his father recognized him from afar and didn't care about his condition. He was received home with open arms. What a great example of God's grace for us. His grace is greater than you and I can imagine. He is always willing to forgive us, and he doesn't care what the older brother thinks. Because if you read the whole story, you will notice that the older brother got angry with the father for these things, blaming his effort and sacrifice instead of rejoicing at the arrival of his brother. So I invite you today to take care to not be like the older brother, but let us ask the Lord that his grace always surrounds us in our lives and families. And it doesn't matter if we arrived first or last, or if we left and came back repentant. Let us not forget that his grace is equal and reaches everyone. This is your sister Vanessa Ortiz, and may God bless you.
Gracias por estar ahí, escuchando Bálsamo de Vida. Si estas palabras han edificado tu vida, escríbenos a balsamodevidareflexiones@gmail.com y síguenos en nuestras redes sociales. Reflexiones Bálsamo de Vida. Que su gracia te cubra en este día.